Hello everyone, welcome to GSS Core. This is Ajay Shah. So let's start the discussion of 10 MCQs from current affairs. And this is the first question for you. The question is about trend in Indian food grain market. The first statement says the production pattern of cereals is synchronized with its demand pattern. This statement is wrong because the trend of decreasing demand for cereals and increasing supply of cereals shows that the production pattern is not synchronized with the demand pattern. Now the second statement says the government is the single largest buyer of rice and wheat in the domestic grain market. So this statement is correct. The third says Food Corporation of India is a non-statutory organization. This statement is wrong because Food Corporation of India is a statutory organization founded by Food Corporation Act 1964. So only 2 is the correct answer here. So B will be the correct answer. Now some value addition. So what is Food Corporation of India? Food Corporation of India was set up in 1965 with the primary duty to purchase, store, move, transport, distribute and sell food grains and other foodstuffs. Now there are some objectives of Food Corporation of India like procurement of food grains from farmers at minimum support price, which has been announced by the government, then to distribute food grains to the consumer through PDS, particularly vulnerable section of society at affordable prices, and also to maintain the buffer stock of food grains to deal with any kind of food scarcity and also for price stability. Now the government has emerged as the single largest procurer and holder of food grains, and the government almost procures around 40 to 50% of the total market surplus of rice and wheat, and thus emerge as the dominant buyer of these grains. That's all. We'll move to the next question. Now this question is again on a technical word, that is dead weight loss income that is lost forever, to highlight which issues in the Indian economy: impact of climate change, excessive government intervention in the market, low female labor participation in the market, wastage of demographic dividend. So the correct answer is option number B, that is excessive government intervention in the market. Now some value addition. So government can affect the market either through direct participation, such as being a market maker or as a buyer or supplier of goods and services, or it can even affect the market through indirect participation, such as through regulation, taxation, subsidy or any other influence. Now government intervention affects the dynamic interaction of supply and demand in the market, and thereby is a determination of equilibrium market prices. Now when the prices is too high, there is an excessive amount of product for sale compared to what people want. But when the price is too low, it causes the consumers to want more of the product than producers have available. In both the cases, serious welfare loss results because not enough of the food is sold. The wasted chance to create both the producer and the consumer welfare from such sales leads to dead weight loss income that is lost forever. That's all. Now question number 3. So this question is on the debt waiver policy by state and central government to the farmers. You might be aware about this fact that successive state government and central government from time to time they announce debt waiver policy for the farmers. So with regard to this, the first statement says and the question is asking about the comment by economic survey categorically fine. The first statement says farmers who avail full waiver invest more but are less productive after the waiver when compared to the partial beneficiary. This statement is wrong because as per the economic survey, farmers with full waiver beneficiary consume less, save less, invest less and are less productive after the waiver when compared to the partial beneficiary. The second statement says debt waiver increases the formal credit flow to the farmer. So this is again wrong because debt waivers reduce the formal credit flow to the very same farmers which it intend to help. Fine. So both statement 1 and 2 are wrong. So correct answer will be neither 1 nor 2. Now some validation. So economic survey has made comment on debt waiver policy of the government of India and the state governments. And as per the economic survey, an unconditional and blanket debt waiver is a bad idea. It does not achieve any meaningful real outcomes for the intended beneficiary, while the cost of exchequer are significant. More importantly, debt waiver disrupt the credit culture and end up reducing the formal credit flow to the very same farmers it intends to help. Analysis of debt farmers given by the states and center shows that full waiver beneficiary consume less, save less, invest less, and are less productive after the waiver when compared to the partial beneficiary. It also says that the waiver increases loan defaults on the future loans and no improvement in the wages, productivity, or consumption of marginal farmers. That's all. Now the question number 4, and the question number 4 says India's lackluster export performance is caused by a very high diversification in its export basket. So this statement is wrong, because India's lackluster export performance is caused by lack of diversification in its export market and not because of high diversification. The second statement says India's participation in the global value chains has been low compared to major exporting nations in East and Southeast Asia. So this statement is correct. So only second statement is correct. So B will be the correct answer. Now some value addition. So overall high diversification combined with low specialization implies that India is spreading its exports thinly over many products and partners, leading to its lackluster performance compared to China. Now if India wants to become a major exporter, it should specialize more in the areas of its comparative advantage and achieve significantly quantity expansion. That's all. We'll move to the next question. Now this question is a purely factual question. The question says bilateral agreement between India and which of these following countries has shown the percentage increase in the imports higher than that of the exports. So in this, the correct answer is option number A, that is Korea, Japan and Sri Lanka. So this is purely factual question. We'll move to the next question. The question says, with reference to free trade agreements signed by India, consider the following statements. Most of the FTAs that India had signed in the past had not worked in India's favor. So this statement is correct as per the economic survey. The second says agreements led to worsening of India's trade deficit with the partner countries with which the agreements have been signed. This statement is also correct. Both statement 1 and 2 are correct. Now this question is a self-explanatory question. We'll move to the next question. Question number 7. Now this question is on ease of doing business. The question says, in which of the following parameters of ease of doing business index India's rank is trailing? Fine. So in which India's rank is trailing? So the correct answer is in registration of property, then in enforcing contract, and then in paying taxes. India's rank is basically trailing. So the correct answer is 2, 3, 4. That is option number C. Now some value addition. So what is this ease of doing business? So ease of doing business index is a ranking system established by World Bank Group. Among the chosen 190 countries, India has been ranked 63rd in world in doing ease of doing business. World Bank Report 2020. Now why this is so? Because in 2014, Government of India has launched an ambitious program of regulatory reforms aimed at making it easier to do business in India. The program represents a great deal of effort to create a more business-friendly environment. Now, India's ranking on construction permit has improved. India's ranking on getting electricity has improved. India's rank in even protecting minority investors has improved. But as per the report, India continued to trail in some parameters like ease of starting business, registration of property, paying taxes, and also enforcing the contract. That's all. Now this is question number 8. Which of the following is the correct order of percentage share of freight transportation in India? Basically, we have to arrange in decreasing order. So the correct answer is the first will be road, railway, waterways. That is option number D. Now some value addition. So if we see, then transportation sector play a very important role in any of the economic system. The coordinated system of transport plays an important role in the sustained economic growth of the country. And the transport system in the India comprises a number of modes such as railways, roads, then ports, inland waterways, coastal shipping, airports, etc. Now in India, railways and roads are dominant means of transport, carrying more than 95% of the total traffic generated in the country. Although other modes such as coastal shipping and inland water transport would play a greater role, the railways and roads would continue to dominate the transport landscape in the future even. Now if you see the global scenario, then globally transportation by ports is the most important, most favored, followed by railways and then roads. But in India we see the just opposite trend. That's all. Now this question is on which of the following is, we will cut this knot. Which of the following is a sub-index of the World Bank ease of doing business? So the correct is the first one, that is getting electricity. Then we have third, that is protecting the minority investor. And then we have 5, that is starting the business. So C will be the correct answer. I will just read out the sub indexes in this ease of doing business. Starting a business, dealing with construction permit, getting electricity, registration of property, then getting credit, then protecting the minority investors, then paying taxes, then trading across borders, enforcing contracts, and at last resolving insolvency. That's all. Now the last question for you. So consider the following statements with reference to non-banking financial companies. The first says non-banking financial companies have a banking license. This statement is wrong, because non-banking financial companies are the financial institutions that offers various banking services but do not have a banking license. They are primarily responsible for making investment but do not have the authority to accept deposits. The second says NBFC cannot issue checks drawn on it. So this statement is also correct. The third says deposit insurance facility of Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation is not available to depositors of NBFC. This statement is also correct. So both 2 and 3 are correct. So B will be the correct answer here. So that's all for today. There is a small announcement on 2nd August at 9 a.m. We are going to conduct an online scholarship in association with Naman Foundation. That's an NGO. And if you get good marks, if you perform well in that examination, then you can even get 100% scholarship. I will just post the link of that scholarship test below my video. Just appear in that examination and see how much scholarship you can get. So thank you very much for joining me. Please like and subscribe our channel for more such videos. Thank you very much.